Even a little.
Okay.
No, it's all right. Do it.
Here we are. We're live. Novak News. Badan and Stefan here.
Guys.
So yeah, we'll be talking today about investments. What makes good and what makes great. So investments all about money. Let's find out how we make it amazing.
Bidan, how are you? Sorry. If anyone didn't catch us, I was just saying on the camera, Bidan looks absolutely massive.
Glowing.
Next to me. Huge, big man.
How are you today,
Bidan,
Steph?
good, thank you. It's good to be here tonight with you.
Yeah.
And we've got an interesting topic. A lot of it people take kind of for granted, but it's what makes a property a good investment property or a good property to purchase. We've got a few little pointers that hopefully we can help you with tonight. To shed light on maybe making a good property purchase.
There we go. All this money, that's what
right.
you need.
Look at it. It's just falling down behind us.
All right.
But look, we've come up with about 20 different points here just to help guide you out there in the marketplace with what we feel, should be things you should look at. And first I'm going to start off with probably the obvious one, and that is location and position. And two very, very different things. You always hear real estate agents talking. You always see the TV shows, location. Definitely a good thing to consider. We're here on the beaches, so we know anything near the water goes really well. But position is different to location. Position is where you are, say, within that suburb. Are you in a spot that gets good natural light? Are you in a spot that might be a high traffic flow zone? Are you in walking distance to shops, to buses, to cafes? So that can really, really influence what your rental return is going to be. Location, yes, one. So try to choose, obviously, a great suburb. We know the closer. Somebody told me something a while ago that they said being close to the water is like an insurance policy on the value of your home. The closer you are, the more insured you are.
I can totally feel people have different love and different heart for property close to water. Yeah. So location.
So location. Be smart. Research the location. But then the position within the location is almost just as important.
There we go.
Okay.
We'll go to the next one. Price. That's kind of one of the main factors driving people, how much they can borrow and how much they can afford. And getting that right price for the investment property is always a good thing because it's all about the numbers. You want to get a good return out of it. So to get a good return, you have to enter at a very good entrance in terms of the number. You don't want to pay high because it's not about emotions. It's about numbers. So pricing is very important, and filtering through and being in the game, understanding what's good value stock and what's not good value. You really need to point that down and filter it through.
Definitely. With price as well, we sometimes hear the term called a bridesmaid suburb, and that would be something. I'll give you an example here on the Northern Beaches. Everybody loves Manly. Everybody talks Manly. They love it. Manly carries a premium. Obviously, probably I'll go as far as to say the strongest market on the Northern Beaches. But the bridesmaid suburbs would then be the handful of suburbs that come around it. So coming out Fairlight, and then back up the beaches, Freshwater, Curl, these suburbs that do well. So they're good off if you're looking at price. But it doesn't mean you have to get the most expensive suburb. Those ones stepping back.
The next door neighbor is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. The bridesmaid. Bridesmaid. Rental yields and cash flow. We hear a lot about this in commercial real estate. Also in residential, rental yields is the percentage that you're returning, the property's returning, as opposed to what you would have paid for the property. So the higher the yield, obviously, the more cash coming into your pocket. Cash flow, again, some people, and this is a touchy one as well, rental yield versus cash flow. You hear a lot of people talking about just cash flow positively geared or negatively geared properties. Positively geared property means that it's almost paying for it. Well, it is paying for itself without you dipping into your pocket. Negatively geared means you're contributing. But a flip side to cash flow as well is that there are tax benefits if you are negatively geared. But really looking at, okay, what am I paying to the property and what's it returning in rent? Is your cash flow, and you want to try to have a good cash flow if you can.
Definitely. That's, I think, the main goal as an investor.
Definitely.
One thing. All right, diving into the next one. Population growth.
Yes.
So, if you are buying one as an investment, it's definitely you will rent it out. And if the population is not that dense or vast, it might be tough finding a renter or a tenant going in there. So if the population is it's growing in that particular suburb, then definitely the demand is higher. And if you buy a property and put it in the market where, let's say, 10 people are desperate looking, you'll definitely get that good value. And again, it comes back to price and cash flow.
Yeah.
Get a good rental return there as well.
Yeah. I think population also, you kind of want to look at the type of people in those suburbs.
Yeah.
Like if it's a suburb that's full of houses and you know that tenants are going to be renting houses, you don't want to go and buy a one-bedroom unit in that suburb.
Yeah, definitely.
As well. So that's a demographic, maybe not so much population.
Probably, yeah,
Demographic.
pretty much. Yeah.
Vacancy rates. So this is the percentage at which a property sits vacant. Obviously, a vacancy rate. You want to go into suburbs, obviously, that have very low vacancy rates. That means they're in demand suburbs. They're leasing quickly. Tenants typically will stay for a longer period in these suburbs. So again, sometimes it might be an element of lifestyle. Good rent, good properties. We'll talk about a few more of those too. But try to focus on suburbs that have lower vacancy rates, and that just basically means that your property, if it does need to be relet, should move pretty quickly. At the moment, I was reading that typically under 2 to 3% is kind of the norm through Sydney. At the moment, I think it's 1.3% vacancy rate, which means it's a very difficult market if you're looking for a property to rent. Unfortunately. Yeah.
But if you're looking to put it on the market, I think that's the best possible time.
If you're an investor. Yeah.
Right, moving on. Days on market.
Yep.
So pretty much as the topic says, days on market. So how many days does a property take to sell from the day it's listed to the day it's sold? So higher the days of market, there are a few things why would a property not sell in this kind of market. First thing, it could be the price. Might be it's a bit too high up. Next thing, the location might not be great, or could be a bit high inside, could be a steep land, or there are a few things there. But for investor, it could be a good chance to dive in and get that cheap price.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's like let's say 100 days on the market, the owner's like, oh, what's wrong with my property? And you can just swoop in and say, okay, this is what I can offer for a property. So you can take that advantage and dial it towards your end with the days on market if it's there. And that's good.
Yeah, my next one's similar to yours, Bidan, is stock on market. So the number of properties, I guess, that are available at that time, whether for sale or for lease. Again, you want to look at marketplaces that aren't oversaturated. And what I mean by that is if there's a suburb with a lot of new development coming on, there's going to be more selection for buyers and more so for tenants, which will change how strong of an investment property you've got. Something I'll also share that I only just thought of was we've experienced it here firsthand when we deliver brand new developments. And just say you're in a suburb that might have 5 or 6 new developments, there's going to be 500 new. Well, that's probably getting a bit ahead of myself. Just say there's going to be about 200 new properties. The first wave might all hit at the same time. And what that might mean as an investor or a property owner is you may need to ask a more competitive or even a lower rent just to secure your tenant. That first initial wave of letting out brand new property, particularly when there's a lot of it, unfortunately, you're not going to, you'll still get, you should get market return, but you may need to even come under market to get yours leased before the other 20 that have just hit the market as well.
That totally makes sense. Like it's a bit tough to find, this is the current market, that's what I want, and then there's 20 new comes in and kind of brings the price down. And stock on market will also mean that, if you're in a suburb where it's pushing up and there's more and more coming on, generally your rents and your property values are going to come down a little bit. Pretty much the supply and demand. Of the scale, comes down to that. I think similar to that, the next one is vendor discounting, meaning a property might be listed for a certain price, and a few days down the line, it might sell for lower than the listed price. So if the days on market is higher, the owners will go, okay, what's wrong with the property? Why is no one buying? Then it's either price, promotion, or what's that price? Product. There you go. Thank you. So product, house, it's great. Promotion, the agencies are doing the best they can. Price is the last thing. The owners might be expecting this high, but the property might be worth there. So at some point after the days of market being a bit higher, investor comes in, offers a lower price, and this is accepted. So that could be your vendor discounting. My one as well. The next one, I don't know. I've kind of thrown it in there. Auction clearance rates for an investment property. Again, it can be a measure of how desirable that suburb is that you're looking at.
Obviously, if there's a lot of people buying property in there and it's moving quickly and the prices are increasing, it's probably going to be a high demand rent area. But with auction clearance rates, they are not always 100% accurate from how I understand them. Some agents, agents are happy to tell you when a property sells at auction. When it doesn't and it passes in, they kind of hide their face a little bit. And then they'll tell you, in 2 weeks, once it's sold, that it's sold for a great price. So the auction clearance rates are not always accurate.
Yeah.
They can sometimes be a little bit higher than what's the truth out there.
Even if you look at last 2 of our auctions, it passed in and then sold the same day in the afternoon.
Yeah. That's right. I classify that as an auction, as a sold auction. The same day as an auction. So I'm good with that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Next one is ratio of owners to renters. So if you look at a suburb, you want to check if they're mostly owners occupied or they're mostly renters there.
Yeah.
So if there's a suburb, there's easy transportation, there's lots of shopping centers around, there might be more renters there. If it's more units, it could be renters in there.
Yeah.
So if as an investor you want to invest in a property that's highly saturated with tenants or renters, because if you buy a house in full of owner occupied area, the whole street is owner occupied, it might be a bit tough for a tenant to move in there, because there might be not those demand for renters. So you need to do this research and do the numbers again. So the more tenants in a suburb, you have to get in there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The next one I've got is you can use the internet to search for certain things. And as a consumer, so as a tenant or a buyer, unfortunately, a lot of the online portals don't share all the background information. If you're a seller and you're paying to use them, they'll tell you everything. If you're a buyer or a tenant and you're just searching for property on there, unfortunately, they don't tell you everything. One thing we do is we track the number of properties across the whole Northern Beaches. And you can do this at home as well, both for sale and for rent. And basically all you do, jump onto realestate.com. You've got your search bar at the top. You punch in Northern Beaches and you go to, there's a list or there's a map. And I hit the map icon, expand it all out. It will tell me how many properties are sitting in the map on the Northern Beaches. And it's a bit tedious. It might be a bit boring for some people, but it's a good way. If you check that week in, week out, you'll see exactly the number of rental properties and the number of sale properties. You can do it for a suburb, but across the whole marketplace. And if you see that number increasing, obviously prices will probably be heading south. If you see it's decreasing, they're probably heading up. So a little bit of a tip there for buyers and renters.
I think that's a very good thing. Like, again, demand versus stock. If the stock is going low, that means the next open home you might be on a Saturday, you might get a bit more crowd there. So pretty much that. All right, moving on to the next one, value adding potential. I think this is one of the most important factor. Being an investor, you need to find a property. If you find one that's in a fairly original state, hasn't been renovated, that's the key. Like, that's pretty much the gold mine is what we call it. That means you can get in there, add your own touch, do some renovation, and you can either flip it or have a very good rent out of it. Because it presents well, people will pay that premium price if your property is premium as well. And also, if you buy a big block of land and there's an old house in there, you can chuck in a granny flat at the back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's getting very popular these days, because $700 per week is like 400 grand in 4 to 5 years. So that's some a good help in your mortgage.
Yeah, definitely. So, the other thing with value adding that I see a lot of that I'll definitely point out, Mark Novak has been a genius with it. He loves it. Is just identifying what a property can offer outside of what you can see. And a lot of times we'll go through an apartment and he'll be like, oh, I can put a wall up there and that can be a study, or we can open that up and it can be a nursery. And those factors, particularly with working from home and obviously the increasing cost of living and rents and mortgages, to be able to build in a nursery or something like that will improve the overall appeal of the property, boost its value, but boost its rent as well. So I like that for value adding.
The more creative you get, the better value you can get out of the property.
The next point I've got, again, it's a little bit hit and miss, uniqueness in the marketplace. Again, if you're coming into a new suburb that's just been freshly developed, a lot of properties look the same, be done. They don't have a lot of character. So sometimes, you can have something that stands out. It might draw better appeal from tenants. It might draw better appeal also when you're reselling to obviously be something a little bit different. I'm ethnic. I like concrete all the way. You can see it, big plaster lines on the front gate. nothing else screams stand out more than that to
There
me.
you go.
And maybe some columns out the front as well.
Yeah, so everyone has a different taste. So
I think my taste is a good taste.
good taste. Yeah.
What do you think?
I believe you. Totally with you.
Definitely. So uniqueness can help. But I mean, it's pretty common sense that if you've got something very different to what your competitors have got, you're probably going to draw more interest
Definitely.
to it.
It's like selling a house if you have a granite flat at the back.
Yeah,
Best.
spot on. Spot on. Okay.
Next, employment opportunities. So it's a good thing to look at it as well. It could be a good capital growth and a good rent as well. If there's a nearby, there's a big company that's being established, or there's a massive shopping center being built, and you buy a house or apartment next to it, there's a good chance that the shopping center will have a lot of employees that they'll be working there. And your property being right next to it, there's a good chance there will be more tenants looking for a property there. So there you go. That's a different thing not many people think about.
Yeah. I mean, and people have to be able to afford where they live, so to be able to work where you live is key as well. And that's I think. I mean, we generally talk about real estate on the northern beaches. Mm-hmm. I grew up in country Queensland in a town that is heavily reliant on the mining industry, and sometimes I see the property prices there; they're the same as they are here on the northern beaches. 2 years later, it's a fifth of the price. Yeah. It is just so dependent upon that main industry infrastructure for what its rents are and what that property is. So for those looking abroad, and maybe rural employment is a big thing to be aware of. 15 kind of makes sense as well, proximity to amenities. So if you can walk to the beach, if you can walk to your favorite cafe, get to school pretty quick with the kids, there's good transit lanes in and out to work, there's train stop, bus stop, ferry, anything that is going to be a benefit is definitely going to impact your property value, impact your rents.
Yeah, the more boxes it tick, the more better.
Spot on. More restaurants for some of us, maybe more gyms after the restaurants. I probably need more gyms than restaurants.
But restaurants look lovely.
Yeah, that's it.
Moving on, zoning and title type.
Yep.
So this is very interesting. Like in northern beaches, I think every 5 to 7 years they rezone a few areas.
Yep.
And we can see now suburbs like Brookville, Cromer, and Warrior, they are getting more of a residential zoning because the nearby suburbs, there's not much land left there to build. So you can always see that potential. Like initially, it might be a commercial zone. You might buy a big block of land or a big house in a massive block. But at some point, it might be a commercial zone, and a developer might come in. That land looks great. I might build an apartment complex there. Mm-hmm. So that's the big upside that you can do. So some research for zoning, like it always happens 5 to 7 years. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Zoning, I think to me depends on what you own. Because just say you've bought an apartment and the next suburb over is all houses, and then it's rezoned to R3 medium density. You're going to have a ton of competition right next door coming on the market for rent, for sale in the future. On the flip side, we've got a property right now on the market in Bayview. It's just under 20,000 square meters. It's currently zoned rural, which is rural farming, I guess. I'll put it that way. But seeing the trend on the northern beaches over the last 30 years of real estate, I find it hard pressed to not to think that kind of property will be rezoned into residential blocks, and there'll be more upshot with it. So again, as an investment property, it's not a rental or a cash flow in that scenario, but I think you hold and you're going to make money. On the flip side, unfortunately, if you're the neighbour in a block and there's going to be 50, 60, 80, 100 new houses around you, it's going to be competitive.
But you kind of have to predict the future on that one.
Yeah.
But your property there is massive, like a flat block of land, 20,000 square meters. Yeah. It's a big upside.
Big upside. Aging condition of the property. So again, something that you can add value to will increase its value. That you can make improvements to will increase its value, will increase its rental appeal at the same time. You've got to be careful it's not a money pit and you're just throwing money into this thing, and you've got problems with the roof, you've got problems with the footings, you've got problems with the drainage. Important before buying real estate that you do a strata report or a building and pest report. And also if you're leasing a property to tenants, that you're on top of any potential repairs or damages that you can rectify straight away and nip it in the butt before it becomes a big problem. But aging condition, two key things kind of be aware of.
Yeah.
Obviously. There we go. Pretty obvious.
Moving on, floor plan and functionality.
Yep.
I think this is kind of a basic thing. When you're looking for a property, you kind of want you have to match that vibe as well. And that's what buyers say to me. I didn't get the vibe on this property because people
The
have
vibe. I always hear the vibe.
Yeah.
Always.
Like it's the first 5 seconds someone walks into the property, they kind of get a feeling or something out of the property. Like if it's open plan, everything's bright, you got northeast facing with the sunlight coming, people fall in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's south facing, it's dark, you have to turn lights on in midday, then a few different things. Also with floor plan, more open the better. So you have your open layout, living kitchen, all looks massive, opens to a balcony, and you got bedrooms on the other side, decent sized rooms, not all cramped up. So those things definitely add value.
Mm-hmm.
So a basic 2-bedroom here sells for 800,000, and the premium one with much open plan might go for 1.1, 1.2. So it's that floor plan that's selling. It's that good flow.
Yeah. And again, floor plans that you can play with, that you can make an extra room from, or knock out a couple walls, like Bidan said, that opens it up. Yeah. You can make quick, easy, profits and better rents by making a few little touches to it. Construction type. What's the property built from? A lot of people don't even think about that. Brick home's fantastic, good for insulation, stays warmer and cooler warmer in summer, cooler in winter.
Other way around.
Sorry, cooler in summer, warmer in winter. Timber, obviously, just being aware of what the maintenance might be behind it. But it is vital to pay attention to what the property's built from, only because I'll use the example of recently. We've had a big review of cladding. So properties that were built with external cladding, where all the cladding was reviewed again as new fire restrictions were brought into place. And then anything that was not, what's the term I'm thinking of? Basically didn't tick the boxes. I'm thinking compatible, but that's compliant.
Compliance, yep.
You win the door prize.
Right.
Compliant. So there's new compliance standards that came out, and basically, if you had a property that needed, completely new external cladding, it happened to a lot around here, and it was done for the right reasons. It cost the owners money. Could have cost them a tenant over the period of it getting done, or some tenants could ask for a lower rent during the period. So be mindful of what it's built from. Fibro, again, something to be mindful of with asbestos and things like that in there too.
Definitely. I think that's the last 20.
Yeah.
Number 20. So it's kind of similar to what you said, construction types. It's finishes and what's inclusions. So, what's the property actually made of?
Yep.
Like if you're in a fire zone, you don't want a house full of wood. You want it fireproof. Similar with flood zone and all that. So in Narrabeen, pretty much most of the things are flood zone near the lagoon. So the new rules, what they have is you have to raise your property. Yep. I think we've recently been through all that in the previous Novak news. So finishes, what's your property actually finished with? Is it double brick in there? Is it fiberboards or weatherproof boards and all that? So I think it's a basic thing these days. A building and pest report is something very important that is highly recommended. There are many people out there providing that. Pre-purchase inspection is what they call it. So
that's a good one.
You just need to know what you're getting into, because buying a house $2 million, it doesn't come out of thin air, and you don't want to dump it
throw it down.
Throw it out. So
Also, I'll add to fit and finishes is some people, obviously, when you're doing renovation work, you're improving kitchens, you're improving bathrooms. If it's an investment property, you want to go for quality, but it doesn't mean that you need to provide the Taj Mahal. You've got to be mindful of this type of real estate that you've got, the market that you're trying to attract it to, and if it's premium top end, then premium top end finishes are fine. If it's Northern Beaches based real estate, nice, clean, modern, people will love it. You don't have to go overboard, but if it's looking good and it works, I guess really, and it works is the main thing. That's really what people want to. Don't overspend on certain fixtures and fittings. Be mindful of what the market is that you're addressing, and you're attracting people into.
I think you need to know your audience kind of.
Absolutely.
And, work with the flow.
Again, plaster lions, concrete everywhere. Can't go wrong, people. Can't go wrong.
So Steve is all about the concrete then.
Right.
But that's true as well.
The more concrete, the better the price.
That's true as well. Like people nowadays are looking for red brick homes and red brick apartments because they know they're very strong.
Yes.
So there are a few things to change in the market.
Definitely.
All right, I think that's it from us.
That's pretty much it. So just a few quick pointers there. A lot of it common sense. Again, guys, any questions about real estate, we're here to help. Novak Properties, you can get us anytime.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anytime.
So that's
Even-
it from us.
Even after 8.
Yeah, after 8. Yeah. All right. You have a good night then, Steve.
Thank
All right,
you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.